All right, so today we're diving into something I know a lot of you are curious about, uh, these car-free city zones.
Yeah, they're popping up everywhere, right?
It seems like it, yeah. And honestly, I think the idea is super intriguing. Like, what if we could just ditch cars in certain parts of cities?
Right.
What would that actually look like?
Right.
So you guys sent us a bunch of stuff, some articles, studies, even some personal anecdotes about this, and I'm actually excited to unpack all of this with you.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex topic when you really get into it.
Definitely, and I think that's why it's perfect for a deep dive. We want to look at both the upsides and the downsides, because every idea has them.
Absolutely.
And in the end, maybe, just maybe, you'll walk away with a new perspective on how our cities could function. So let's start by just picturing it, a city with no cars, like zero, in certain zones.
I mean, it kind of sounds amazing, right? Like, just
It
imagine
does, right?
walking down the street and not having to worry about traffic. The air is clean. You can hear birds singing.
Oh my gosh, yes. And think about all the space that would open up for, I don't know, parks, outdoor cafes, maybe even like community gardens.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I read about Amsterdam and Oslo. They've already started implementing these zones, and it sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're kind of like the pioneers in this, and the results have been honestly pretty impressive. Like, Oslo saw a massive drop in air pollution.
Really?
Yeah, like a 60% reduction in nitrogen dioxide.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's in the car-free zone. So it really shows that this can have a real impact on public health and obviously the environment.
And doesn't have to be all doom and gloom for businesses either, right?
Definitely not. Like, think about it. When you have all these pedestrians walking around, wouldn't that be great for, shops, restaurants, the whole vibe of the area changes?
Right, becomes like, I don't know, more of a community hub, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. People are actually out and about enjoying the space, and that can be great for local businesses.
Okay, so we've talked about all the good stuff. But, I mean, come on, there has to be some downsides to this, right? Like, what about people who live further away and need their cars to get around?
Yeah, that's a big question. And it's something that's definitely been brought up in a lot of the research and feedback we got. Because, not everyone lives within walking distance of everything.
Yeah, and not everyone can walk or bike, right?
Exactly. Like, what about people with disabilities or elderly people or families with young children, who rely on their cars for transportation?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, how do you even begin to address that? Like, what are some of the solutions people are talking about?
Well, one thing that keeps coming up is this idea of autonomous shuttles.
Wait, like self-driving?
Yeah, basically,
Oh,
it's this idea, and it was mentioned in one of the articles, of having these small electric self-driving shuttles that can navigate these car-free zones.
okay, so they basically provide transportation for people who can't, walk or bike long distances.
Exactly, and they could be on demand, so you just, call one up when you need it.
That's pretty futuristic.
It is. It's definitely still in the early stages, but it's something that cities are starting to explore.
Okay, but hold on, how expensive would that be? And wouldn't you need a whole new infrastructure for these things to work properly?
Oh, yeah. There are definitely challenges. Like you said, infrastructure is huge. And then there's, safety concerns, making sure the technology is reliable.
Yeah.
It's not a simple fix, but I think it shows that people are thinking creatively about how to make this work for everyone.
And I mean, autonomous shuttles aside, we can't forget about the more traditional solutions like public transportation.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if we're going to reduce car dependence, we need to make sure that public transportation is efficient, affordable, and accessible.
Right, and maybe even incentivize people to walk or bike more, like building better bike lanes and making streets more pedestrian friendly.
Yeah, I think it has to be a multi-pronged approach. We can't just focus on one thing.
And what about businesses? Like some businesses rely heavily on deliveries and customers driving in.
Absolutely. And that's a valid concern. I mean, you can't just cut them off without offering alternatives, right?
Yeah, I mean, would there be special permits or designated delivery times?
Possibly, yeah. Or maybe even support programs to help those businesses adapt to the new system.
Interesting.
Like maybe financial incentives to switch to electric delivery vehicles or help with, I don't know, setting up online ordering systems.
Yeah, something like that.
It's about working with them, not against them.
So, okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to bring it back to you guys for a second. Imagine your own city, right?
Okay.
Picture your neighborhood, the streets you walk down every day. Now imagine a car-free zone popping up there. Where would it be? What areas would make sense? And what challenges do you think you'd face? I mean, every city is different, right?
Oh, for sure. Every city, every neighborhood even has its own unique set of needs and, challenges. So what works in one place might not work in another.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this conversation so interesting.
It does.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a lot of, thought, planning, and community engagement.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
you need to involve residents, businesses, everyone in the process.
Yeah, and be willing to experiment and adapt, right?
Yeah.
Like, not everything is going to work perfectly the first time.
Right. It's about being flexible and finding what works best for that specific community.
So I think it's safe to say that this deep dive into car-free zones has been, well, pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, it
I've
is.
seen that there's a ton of potential benefits, like cleaner air, less traffic, more vibrant public spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to acknowledge the concerns around accessibility, economic impact, and, just making sure that this transition is fair for everyone. And it's not just about banning cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about rethinking how we design our cities,
Mm-hmm.
how we prioritize different modes of transportation, and ultimately, how we create a more sustainable and livable future for all.
Well said. And I think at the end of the day, the big question is how can your city, or any city for that matter, embrace the potential of these car-free zones while ensuring that no one gets left behind in the process?
That's something worth thinking about, for sure.
It is.
All right, well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep those wheels turning. Or maybe not, depending on where you live.
Yeah.